This is Scott Richmond
and Arnie Sherman.
You're listening to What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290 and 1015 FM. All right, good morning, Arnie Sherman. It's been a while.
You know, it has been a while, and it's good to be back, and it's good to see you, and we have an interesting show today. We're going to have Greg Johnson, who for the last 26 years has led the Montana Repertory Theater. That's been one of the most aggressive regional theaters and traveling performing arts organizations, and it's been here for 50 years, celebrating its 50th anniversary, so we're excited to hear about all of their ongoing activities and their planned activities. But to borrow a phrase from John Lovitz, thespians acting. I wanted to ask you, have you ever acted in a live performance?
Oh, gosh, in elementary school I did.
No, but since then, have you been in any kind of performance? Have you been in regional theater or touring theater or anything?
Does giving a toast at a wedding or a bar mitzvah speech
that does
count?
No. Has to be in front of an audience that's going to be critical of you. Well, I actually had one experience.
You did?
Many years ago in Ohio at a repertory theater just like this one.
What is a repertory theater? I mean, we can ask him.
We can ask him. You know, it's sort of, I think it's a regional theater.
Right.
It doesn't do original shows, but I'm not sure exactly of the
Let's
definition.
get the detail, sure.
You know, given my limited acting experience. I did some public service announcements and, TV commentary and did some of those things. But I was in one show. It was based on Moliere's Imaginary Invalid, that play, and it was called Show Me Where the Good Times Are. It was a musical comedy.
Okay.
And I got cast in this. I didn't really mean to get cast in it. I was there giving moral support to a friend of mine, a woman I was seeing at the time.
What year are we talking about?
This is in prehistoric times.
Flintstones.
I was in my 20s.
Okay.
And it was a musical comedy, and I was there to give her support, and I was sitting in the audience, and the director asked me if I would help them out, come on stage and block some scenes and read some things. And before I knew it, I got cast in the play, and she didn't. And I played Dr. Rothstein, if you can believe that. And
of course I can.
And it was I thought it was going to be very easy. I mean, I had not been any kind of actor in any kind of public school performance.
Right.
And on opening night, dress rehearsal night, I got the quintessential, stage fright, because I didn't come on the stage until the opening of the second act, and the stage opened, and I was on the stage alone, pacing back and forth, and I did like a 6-minute soliloquy.
Really?
Yes, I was talking out loud. And
do you remember how it went?
The reviews of the play said my performance was serviceable. It went okay. I didn't flub any lines, and it worked out okay.
Nerve-wracking.
But we're going to find out today more about what's happening in Montana, in the Montana Rep, and the kinds of performances that they're going to do. I know in this year, I think they have All My Sons, the Arthur Miller play, lined up, and I think, or they did that this past year for 2016. I think coming up for 2017, they're doing Barefoot in the Park.
Oh,
with,
okay.
Neil Simon's play. So I'm interested to hear about Greg's perspective over these past 26 years and more about the live performances in Montana and in the multi-state area.
And this is like waiting for Guffman. I mean, this is our waiting for Guffman moment.
Sure, it is exactly it. And
we're waiting for Guffman.
Greg performed on Broadway. It was an actor, director,
or he's waiting
stage manager for a number of Broadway productions.
No, I saw that.
So he has a storied career and has made Missoula home. Teaches at the university. Runs the Repertory Theater, and we're excited to have him here.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. You're listening to What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO. When we come back, we'll be joined by Greg Johnson, Artistic Director of the Montana Repertory Theater. See you in a minute. All right, Arnie, we are back with Greg Johnson.
Greg, it's good to have you here this morning.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So before you came in, I was showing my ignorance to Scott about exactly what a repertory theater is.
It's a great question.
So can we start off by explaining what the Montana Rep does.
Okay, the Montana Rep is the professional theater in residence at the University of Montana. Now, that's a long sentence. What it really means is that the company's 50 years old, right? That's
Celebrating your 50th
It's our
anniversary.
50th anniversary. But in 1977, a guy named Jim Criley, who was dean at the time, decided to make it a professional company. And what he meant by that was we would hire people from actors, professional actors from New York or Seattle or Chicago or Los Angeles to come and work with the students. Prior to that, it had been a student-run organization. And that was the big turning point. So what happens, and then they start adding professional directors and professional designers. So there's these people from New York and Chicago with all these professional credentials come into Missoula and work with our students, and we've been doing that since 1977. So it's a professional. I call it embedded. We're sort of embedded at the university.
Where's the nearest repertory theater next to Missoula?
Seattle, I
So
think.
it's Seattle, okay.
Seattle's got a really Seattle Rep. They have it's a terrific company. I think there's some really good theater in Salt Lake. Then going east, Chicago for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, but
So there's-
it's pretty few and far between.
I was going to say, he sounds
Yeah.
like that.
And
That's
you've
great.
been there more than half of the organization's
I know,
life.
isn't that wild? This is my 27th year. So
Did you expect to be here this long?
No. I'm a New Yorker.
Right. So tell
We've
our
talked about this.
So tell our listeners how you
You're a New Yorker?
meandered
Yeah.
and got here.
I was born in Staten Island. And lived in.
Really?
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Staten Island?
Well,
That's great.
up on top, by Silver Lake.
Oh, really?
Right
Okay.
at the top of the hill. I was born there. Then I went to college in Boston, BC, an Eagle.
Right.
And then I went to grad school at NYU. When I got to grad school in 1970, so I was in New York from 1970 to 1990. In that meantime, I worked on Broadway. I did national tours. I toured Europe I did a lot of stuff out of New York. Met a gal from Montana, in New York. We fell in love, got married, and I did.
What was she doing in New York?
She was an actress.
Okay.
She's an actress. And then she introduced me to the folks at Big Fork, the Big Fork Summer Playhouse. And we did a couple of benefits for the Big Fork Playhouse back in the late 70s, early 80s, where we would bring actors from New York and we'd do a free show and we'd raise money for the Summer Playhouse. Because they had just built the new playhouse and we got them a lighting board. And we helped raise some money. So I was known as a nice guy. A New Yorker director who was a nice guy. And then in 1990, there was an opening. The man who was the artistic director decided to leave abruptly. There were personal reasons. And ironically, Kathy and I were getting divorced. Mm-hmm. So
20-year run, it was over, right?
Well, it was not quite that long. But I said to myself, well, I think maybe New York, I'm done with New York for a while. Maybe I'll go to L.A. And I got a call from the University of Montana out of the blue, the summer of 1990, and they said, you want to come to Missoula for a year, just check it out, because we're going to do a national search for an artistic director. I said, Missoula's on the way to L.A.
Right.
I'll drive through,
Northern Pass, right.
stay for a year, enjoy the college life and being a visiting professor and all that entails. And in the middle of it, they said, well, would you like to throw your hat in the ring for the national search for the director of the rep? I said, by this time I had fallen in love with Missoula.
Sure.
And I said, this is fun, build a company, see what I could do. So I threw my hat in the ring, and sure enough, they hired me. And 27 years later,
you're
I'm
still
standing
here.
here talking to you
So
guys.
tell me, back in 1970,
Yes.
when you brought New Yorkers to Big Fork.
It was actually 1980.
Okay, 1980. But
Yeah.
in 1980, what kind of reaction did they get showing up in Montana? Probably most of them had never been here.
Now, same thing that happens every time I bring an Easterner out here. They look around and they go, whoa. Because you can't. I'm looking out a window right now. They can't believe that there's something that they can see that far away. That's the first thing. That's something. It's not the moon.
Right.
It's
Not looking
actually
straight up.
It's actually part of what I'm standing on, and that the big, the big sky, the legend, the whole thing, and the air, and that you can just breathe.
Sure.
So you're an East Coast guy,
Right.
right? So you know what I'm talking. Well,
So
I am too.
Yeah.
I'm from New Jersey.
where?
Summit, New Jersey?
Yeah, well, I lived in the Caldwells and Montclair too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
But you probably know the what's the playhouse in Millburn? Famous
Paper Mill.
Paper Mill Playhouse.
Very well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we lived about 2 miles from there, 3 miles.
Yeah,
from
it's a
there.
great theater.
So is that
It
the
is.
secret, the Montana Big Sky mystique? Is that the way you lure actors and actresses here to perform in the rep?
Well, yes. But the thing is, it's a national touring company. So we're here we rehearse for 3 weeks to a month, and then they hit the road. So they go all over the country. But yeah, people are very curious about it. And we have this thing in the summer called the Colony, and we bring really well-known playwrights from the East and the West Coast, and everybody wants to come back.
That's
if
fantastic.
You're here, you know what it's like in the summertime here.
Right.
You can't beat it.
So you do the Missoula Colony. You also do Visions and Voices.
Yeah,
right?
which is our experimental. We just did a play about the Front Street, the whorehouse on Front Street, 1895. We did a play with music about that, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm
so
sure.
that the Visions and Voices is people from the community, artists from the community come to us and say they pitch an idea, and if we like the idea, we'll green light it, support it, pay for it, and put it up. And that's what we did with Anita Vatchell was the writer, and we did that.
So you brought up the point, pay for it. So how does the rep support itself?
That's a great question, Arnie, because we're both business guys.
Right.
When I got here in '90, I recognized that the National Endowment for the Arts was giving less and less money every year to arts organizations because they were just running out of money.
There were a couple of times that elected officials wanted to completely defund the whole organization.
And Pat Williams, who was was one of the champions of keeping the NAA alive, but that's another story for another day. Where was I going with this?
About funding.
funding.
How
Oh,
you
yeah,
got funding.
Well, I recognized that wasn't going to be the route. And since I was a Broadway guy, I'd done 5 Broadway shows before I came here. I said, what about a commercial model? What about a commercial model? And what would that look like? So I studied the market of touring theater in America, and we hired a professional booking agent named Rena Shagan. And I said, let's make enough money that will pay for the company, so we don't have to depend on the National Endowment for the Arts, and certainly the state legislature in Montana has helped us. We do get funding through the Montana Arts Council.
Okay.
So you get money through the state too, and we're very delighted to have that. But most theaters in this country run on the 60-40 plan, which is 60% earned income, 40% grants. We're 75-25.
That's great.
That's great.
So we're
sustainable.
yeah, exactly.
So when you travel, where do you travel to?
Well, we used to be coast to coast. We used to go from the Norris Theater outside of L.A. to like Maine.
Wow.
The California bookings have dropped off because California went through a big recession like everybody else, but the arts funding was cut drastically. So basically, we start in Missoula, go down through Colorado and Wyoming, hit Texas. We did a lot of dates in Texas. Then we go to the Gulf Coast, then down into Florida, then up the East Coast, towards New York, and then a little north of New York into New England a little bit, and then back into Ohio, in the middle Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, and then we close the tour right around there.
And
That's
so,
great.
for example, this past year you did All My Sons, correct?
Yeah.
And that did what, about 20 performances?
Yeah, that was a smaller tour because it's an American tragedy.
Right.
And people say, "Oh, I don't want to be sad. I don't want to be sad." The year before we did Great Gatsby, and we sold out like crazy. It was like popcorn.
Right.
We had about 45 dates.
And you're going to be doing Barefoot in the Park, which is fantastic.
Same thing, about 45 dates.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you perform anymore in any of these productions?
No.
Do you get the urge to do it?
Yes, I do. I do. I don't like to memorize lines anymore. It's too hard. It's a young man's game.
So when a group is on the road, how many people will travel at any given time?
Between 15 and 19.
Wow. So
yeah, we have 3 vans, and 2 trucks, and everything, the sets, the lights, everything goes on the trucks.
Wow. And that was something you developed over time, or when you started to do the commercial model?
Yeah, well, I inherited the national tour.
Okay.
But at the time, it was 1990. We were only doing Montana, Wyoming, and Eastern Washington.
Okay.
That was it. At about maybe 12 dates. So it was obviously something to build, and I said I'll try to build it.
Right.
So we started building, and somewhere along the line, we came up with the idea to do To Kill a Mockingbird. That was like probably 96. And that exploded. That's such a popular title. That exploded us nationally. And we never looked back. We never looked back from that.
How do you decide what you're going to do for this season?
Well, we specialize in the American canon, as they call it,
Right.
which means Tennessee Williams, Arthur Miller, something like To Kill a Mockingbird or It's a Wonderful Life.
Right.
Stories that about America, about the American character. So we've had, for the 28 years I've been here, we have never repeated it. Oh, we did. Yeah, we repeated one. We repeated Miracle Worker. We've done Miracle Worker twice. But there's a lot of great plays out there. And so we choose 3 that we want to do, and we send them to all the presenters all over the country because we like to please. They're the people who have to. What they do is they go to a booking conference and they buy our show.
Right.
We charge a fee. They
Right.
buy the show, then they take it to their theater, and then they have to sell it so that they can pay what they can recoup what they paid us, and then make a profit.
Right.
Okay, our guest is Greg Johnson, artistic director from Missoula Repertory Theater.
Montana
Repertory Theater. I apologize.
In Missoula.
In Missoula. Talk to us a little bit. Are there vibrant theater communities around the country where you travel? I mean, to support something like this, they're looking forward to Montana Repertory Theater coming into town with this show.
Yeah. We specialize in the small towns. Like, we'll be close to Milwaukee, but we'll be outside of Milwaukee.
Okay.
We'll be close to Chicago, but we'll be outside of Chicago. We'll be close to St. Louis, we'll be outside of St. Louis. And a lot of what happened in the 70s and 80s, a lot of communities created what they call civic centers. They're not doing it so much anymore, but there was, money was flowing to communities.
Sure.
People wanted to create the infrastructure for a downtown, so they'd build these buildings, and now they have to fill them.
Right.
So we'll come in after a musical. We'll come in after a John Denver will play in the old days. Somebody who's hot would be playing. So there's all these theaters all over the country. And then some old theaters, like we play Galveston every year.
Oh.
And it's the Galveston Opera House, and it's one of those really old, beautiful theaters. And they're big fans of the Rep, so we
Do you do musicals?
We have small musicals.
Right, because a musical usually requires a much bigger...
A big orchestra. We've done 2 musicals, and one was with a piano, and the other one was a musical where the whole family played music.
Right.
So
Or
that
a
was
show
easy.
like for Fantastics, which doesn't...
Fantastics would be great.
Doesn't
There was a
use-
Broadway show that we're thinking about called Once.
Sure.
Which all the actors play, so that you just hire actors who can play.
Right.
Right.
And then you send them out. And,
Sure.
Yeah. So that would be possible.
You had mentioned you had done 5 Broadway shows before you came out here.
Yeah.
Any one of them stand out, or were they all interesting experiences? And what role did you play in these shows?
I was stage managing then. The biggest one, I think, that people would know would be Biloxi Blues with Matthew Broderick.
Oh, wow, sure.
And
Which was later made into a movie.
it was with him and Chris Walken.
Right.
Then there was we did a play. I did a play called Da, which is an Irish play. It was a Tony Award-winning
Right.
play. I did Crimes of the Heart, which is a heartwarming Southern play about 3 Southern sisters, and I did Steel Magnolias.
Right.
And I did 2 flops. 2 flops, which I'm very proud of. Actually, they were great experiences. One was called Hide and Seek with Elizabeth Ashley, which a thriller that didn't.
I love Elizabeth Ashley.
Yeah, it was a thriller that didn't thrill.
What was she like to work with?
Well, depending upon who you were talking to, she's either the best person you've ever met in your life. That was my take.
Right.
Or the director who was my boss. He was, I'll never work with her again. Because she was tough. She was tough, but she was brilliant. And we became friends over the course of the.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, it did a Boston tryout, which was successful, and then it opened in New York and got killed. So it closed in a week.
Okay.
Right. So that brings up the other issue: how the role critics play in a play.
Yeah.
You just mentioned a perfect example. It was great in Boston, and the Boston critics liked it, and it got killed in New York.
Yeah, I know.
And what is that? Is that just a personality, or the day of the what side of
Is
the
he
bed
having
they-
a bad day?
Right, exactly.
Is he having a fight with his boyfriend?
Right. I mean, it's
Be anything.
Could be anything.
Right, but they're really it's like a judge and jury
Clive
without
Barnes.
any chance to do
Well,
anything.
you say Clive Barnes, it's the New York Times, basically.
right.
You know that they have a
paper of record.
yeah. So if you and that's what happened, they didn't like it. I think Clive Barnes would move to the Daily News, or no, he'd moved to the Post by the time he actually gave it a good review. But I forget who the critic was at the Times at the time. I think it might have been I forget who it was, but it wasn't Clive Barnes. But they killed it, and it closed in a
was
week.
it.
What was James Walcott? Was he also? No, was he?
No.
Yes, he was the New Yorker, I believe.
Early
He was
on.
early. He
But
was
was he
in,
a theater critic, I thought?
yeah, he was.
Yes, he was.
Or
He was an acerbic theater critic.
Very
as I recall.
acerbic, yes,
That's
he
what I
was.
He
recall.
was, and then how about John Rockwell? No, he was music.
He was
At the
music.
Times.
He was
yes.
music. Yeah.
That love, I'm steeped in journalism and from that era.
Yeah.
It meant something then.
Yeah. Well, there was a great critic for the Times back in the 50s and 60s named Walter Kerr.
Right.
And he really not only wanted to write about the play, but he wanted to know what the theater company's mission was. What were they trying to do? And I think that's what a really great critic is. Very often critics nowadays are not steeped in theater.
Right.
They could be last week they could have been writing for the sports page.
Right.
I mean,
this
not
week in Galveston, they say, go cover that play
That's
and
right.
tell us what you think.
I think that happens because in you love journalism. I do too. I love, I still read the paper in the morning. I read the Missoulian in the morning.
Sure.
The thing is that staffs are being cut left
Yeah,
and right.
it's very
Well,
hard.
I think a great example of that in a way is Rotten Tomatoes. Now that's become the gauge. It used to be Ebert and Siskel, right? Thumbs up, thumbs
Yeah.
down. Now it's Rotten Tomatoes.
I
And
know.
if you pay attention, only about a third or a quarter of the critics that they use are professional critics.
Right.
The rest are amateur critics.
right,
From publications I've never heard of that really are now having a role in whether something is viewed as popular or successful or
Yeah.
something worth seeing. I know many people who now
I don't think
say
it means as
if
much.
it doesn't have over 90 on Rotten Tomatoes, I don't want
I
to go
forget
see
about it. I know.
It's
You know?
weird. We make our decisions kind of quickly based on that data, and
Sure.
I don't think it means as much. Whereas back in the day, a review by Clive Barnes or what could make or break,
Yeah. Totally.
right?
Sure.
A play.
It's not so. That's actually really true. It's not that true anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Ben Brantley's the critic now at the Times, and he's a really good critic. He's a very smart guy. But if he doesn't love it, doesn't mean it's going to go down. It's going to go because
Right.
there's other media.
Right. Who's
there's other
in it?
media who's in it for
yeah,
sure.
Right. People.
Who was the TV guy with CBS? I remember this in the 70s and 80s. There was a TV guy.
Yes, Leonard. Was it Leonard
Leonard Maltin?
Was it Leonard Maltin?
Leonard
Yeah,
Maltin
they
was
used to
there,
put
but there
him
was
on.
Clive Barnes, Leonard Maltin, and there was Jeffrey Lyons.
Jeffrey Lyons.
Jeffrey Lyons.
There's
Yes.
Jeffrey Lyons. He was cool.
He was
Yeah.
all right, and of course Rex Reed came in
Rex,
and out.
no, he's in and out.
And
He's-
so-
Rex Reed was the Post.
Right.
I
Well,
think.
then he also went. He went over to one of the more obscure
Village Voice. I think he might have gotten the Village Voice for a second or two.
So let me ask you about your play. Your plays now get reviews. Do you have a play that goes around the country and some critics love it and some critics don't?
Yeah. See, but the thing is, we're like the carnival. We're a one night, we're a 2 night
Right,
stand.
you're out.
So we're out of town before they. we're down the road.
You didn't like it too bad.
But again, with the internet, somebody can say, "I wonder if I want to go see
a lot of
Barefoot
work.
in the Park," and they punch it in and see what somebody in another city said about it. Right?
You know what? That's a really good question. I don't. We have a Facebook and a media presence. But we should start investigating what the traffic is after what the
Right.
Sure.
traffic is after we're in a town, because that would be interesting to know.
Sure, because what are typical ticket prices to go see your?
Well, that's a great question, because in town, Missoula, the price
Missoula,
is
right.
Missoula, so we charge maybe $18-20.
Right.
In Galveston, they will charge between $50 and $75.
Right. I mean, the prices have really gone high. Scott and I are going to go see Marty Short and Steve Martin in October 21st
Where
in
are they gonna be?
Spokane.
Oh.
They're doing this two-man fabulous performance.
Oh, I wanna go.
And the front
Come with
tickets,
us.
the front row tickets are $350 a seat.
In Spokane.
In Spokane.
Whoa.
Yes.
It should come with a meal.
Yeah.
Should be a
Well,
package
the
deal.
Hamilton story is like you have to mortgage your house to
to go
see
see it.
Hamilton.
Yeah.
and,
Well, I was
you know.
going to ask about that because there are plays that put that renew a spotlight on theater, right?
Yeah.
And so if it was Chicago or if it's Hamilton, and that's always good for business, right?
Totally. I was talking to somebody about Hamilton just the other day, and Hamilton was on the cover of Rolling Stone magazine.
Right.
That's a culturally significant moment.
Sure.
Right? Because it's a crossover moment.
Right.
And it's one of those plays that people that I hold in high regard who are somewhat, independent and don't want to be swayed. Sometimes you hear so much about something and you expect a great deal from it. You're a little disappointed.
Right.
Everybody that's seen it loves it more than the reviews
I know.
give it credit for.
I know.
Right.
Of course, I haven't seen it yet.
I haven't seen it either, but
But I heard, it's opening in Chicago in like 2 months. And I called up to because I can get to Chicago. And they said,
Right.
in a year. A year.
Right,
It's a year wait.
to Chicago.
Oh yeah, there's an
You're
LA
kidding.
performance. There's an LA company that's going to be doing.
I might try LA next.
And that would be.
So how about in your travels? Two questions. One is that who's passed through the Montana Repertory Theater that we would know that has gone on to more fame and fortune, if they have. I mean, it's not a
Well, they're on their way, but they're not fame and fortune. I'd like to quote J.K. Simmons, but he never toured with the Rep, but he did work on the Colony. So
Okay.
we can't claim him exactly, but he's one of ours. You
Right,
know?
of course.
He's the Academy Award winner. He's the star in our firmament
That's
right
great.
now, and he's a fabulous guy. So that's cool. But there's a lot of up and coming people. There's this guy Brick Patrick who played Brick in. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
Yeah.
He's done some He's in that latest Woody Harrelson movie where he plays his twin. Woody Harrelson plays two parts.
okay.
Brick plays Woody Harrelson's body. He's his body double.
Oh,
So he got
okay.
he got to go to Paris, and they shot in Paris, and they shot in LA, and they shot in a different place. So he got to go, and he was on the set. So he met all these people, and he's a really talented guy. So I see him, and there's a guy named Brett Twomey who's from Great Falls, who's becoming a really big star in Chicago theater.
Are there any playwrights or writers that have crossed over to other media that you are are fond of?
Yes, there's one in particular, a guy named Ron Fitzgerald.
Okay.
I'll tell you the Ron Fitzgerald story.
Sure.
He came from Juilliard because we have a relationship with Juilliard for the Colony. They send one or two of their writers, and a second Colony, which is now 20 years ago. This guy came. He was penniless. He didn't have but he was really a good writer, and we helped sustain his career for about 10 years. And he wrote for our educational outreach, and
Wow.
he toured as an actor because we just loved this guy so much. And then somewhere along the line, one of his plays that we had read at the Colony got produced in New York by one of the guys from Sopranos. One of the guys from Sopranos became a theater producer, and it was the Times loved it,
Right.
And here's a big thing for a writer. He got a agent from William Morris.
That's
Sure.
huge. It's probably Michael Imperioli.
It was
Because
Michael.
he has the theater downtown.
That's where they did the play.
Right.
It was called Cyclone, and so he got then Ron, and he'd been doing some copywriting for some advertising agency. He was actually delivering fish from the Fulton Street Fish Market. He was just trying to get by. Gets this agent. All of a sudden, they put him in some deals in L.A., and then he started writing for what's that one where the people smoked weed? Weeds.
Right.
He wrote for Weeds for a
Showtime.
while. Then for Showtime. He wrote for a lot of really, really good stuff. Friday Night Lights.
Okay.
He was a major writer for Friday Night Lights. So all of a sudden, his career is like going crazy. In the meantime, he fell in love with a gal from the Colony named Carmen Corona, who lives here. They got married.
Great name, Carmen Corona.
I know.
Isn't
She's
that
half
her
Cuban.
real name?
That's her real name.
That's a great name.
It's a great name. She's a great gal. And so they got married. He has a house here, and he's making whatever the figure you want to make. He's up to the producer level now.
Wow.
So that's
Got
a sweet
points.
life.
So
yes, sweet life.
That brings up another point. As a kid growing up in New York, off-Broadway was like minor league compared to Broadway, right?
Correct.
That's changed, though. There are a lot
Yeah.
of things on off-Broadway now
Oh, yeah.
that are in demand and coveted
Yeah.
just as much as being on Broadway. So what does that mean now, off and on Broadway?
I think the prices are cheaper off Broadway. Hamilton started. I remember the weekend I was 3 years ago. I was in New York, and it was the last week for Hamilton before it moved to Broadway.
Right.
And there was a couple tickets left, and I called, and then we changed the time, and I called back again, and they were gone. But those tickets were $75 a piece.
Wait, even off Broadway.
Yeah. Well, it was the Public Theater, and that's a big off-Broadway theater. But yeah, it's money. Money is the big difference.
Yeah.
And because you can't afford, when you're paying that much money, people don't take risks. Off-Broadway, you can still take some risks.
So in terms of paying your performers,
Yeah.
you have to pay. Do you pay them all minimum, or are there ones that get more than minimum? How does that work here?
We try to do what's called a favored nations contract, which means all the professional actors get the same salary. Now, that doesn't always work out. It's working out for barefoot in the park. All the equity actors are getting the same. But I think sometimes if there's a real star turn, when we did a play called Doubt a couple of years ago, which is about a really powerful nun and a really powerful priest, and who was the priest abusing this boy or not. There's doubt.
And made it into a movie, I think.
And they did make it into a movie.
Yes, correct.
So the woman who played the woman, we called the woman and the actress, wonderful actress, Susie Hunt, and I don't want to get into too many details because it's not fair, but I said, we have this much money, and she goes, well, how about this much money? So she negotiated. And that's fair. That's what you do.
Right.
You know, sometimes we have the elbow room or the room to negotiate, and sometimes we don't. But with Susie, we certainly did.
Where do these actors and actresses actually find work out? Actually, when they're not working with Montana Rep, I mean, they
go back to their home. You know, Susie's from Seattle, and she does really well in Seattle. She's basically always working, or you go back to New York, and in New York, it's just the thing.
Right.
You know, everybody's struggling.
So when they come here for those weeks, where do they stay?
We usually put them up at the Campus Inn. But we're changing. This year we've rented a house. The marvelous Campus Inn. This year we're renting a house.
On the Great White Way.
Yes, exactly.
Isn't that Broadway?
It's right on Broadway. I want to say something. They have been great to us. They've been great.
That's very good.
We'll call out.
So let me talk to you. You're also a professor at the university.
Yes, I am.
And what do you teach now?
I teach acting and directing.
And what do you think of the quality of the students we get here at the university?
I just have to say they're amazing. See, one of the things I loved about it, that's what's kept me here, is there's no elitism here.
Right.
These are walk-on students. There's some kid from Havre whose parents are ranchers, and for some God unknown reason, he wakes up in the morning and he says, I want to be an actor.
Right.
And he ends up coming to the University of Montana, and I meet him or her, and they've got this incredible talent. And I get to witness this because you wonder where talent comes from.
Right. I mean,
it doesn't come from mom and dad being in the theater or mom and dad.
It's different.
They just have it.
They just have it.
It's different than musical talent because you can see that pretty easily. Someone learns the piano or picks up a guitar.
Right.
But acting talent, it doesn't. You just don't walk around acting all the time.
No.
So how does someone know if they're
John
really
Lovitz.
good? And how do you, John? Yeah, thespian.
Thespians.
Yeah, I'm a thespian. Yeah, I'm an actor. But how do they know? How do most of these folks? How did you know you wanted to act?
My parents took me to a Broadway show when I was 10. It was Bye Bye Birdie with Dick Van Dyke and Cheetah Rivera.
Great show.
Yeah.
Great show.
And I'm sitting in the first balcony looking down, and I said, I don't want to be here. I want to be there. I remember that so distinctly. I want to be there. So I went home at 10, memorized the whole score, and started producing
right?
Bye Bye Birdie with all of my friends.
You know, we were spoiled. Everybody growing up in the tri-state area, my parents used to take us into the city on a Sunday afternoon to see a play, to see a Sunday matinee.
Well, in public school in New York, when I was in school, they made you go to Connecticut and see Shakespeare.
Yes,
you had
we all
to
went.
do that. Yeah,
we
right.
all went.
And that was, at first, I thought that was horrible, because I didn't. But after a while, I was really, I was looking forward to
Stratford, Connecticut.
Stratford, their version of Stratford on
That's
Avon.
right. That's right.
Yeah, we used to go see all the great.
What was the first place?
Shakespeare.
I'm trying to think about.
Hamlet, I think, was the first thing they took us to.
I think I saw Annie. A little younger than you, Arnie.
Yeah,
Annie, but with Andrew McArdle.
Yeah.
With the original.
The original.
Andrew McArdle. And then, I was a bigger fan of, I like just plays, like dramas or comedies.
Yeah.
I wasn't a big musical theater person.
Yeah. Well, I was all musicals until I went to grad school at NYU. And then all of a sudden it got very serious.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's the way it would be there.
It's a serious grad school.
But I think people who don't have the opportunity to see live theater are really missing out, and that's one of the reasons
Absolutely.
the repertoire theater is so great. It's because it's a completely different experience when you're sitting in an audience.
Right.
I'll never forget, there were 2 or 3 shows in which I was watching and I was completely, mesmerized. One of them was Lenny. About Lenny Bruce.
Love
with
that
Cliff
play.
Gorman playing Lenny.
Yeah.
And he won the Tony, I think.
Yes,
for
he
that.
did. Oh, he sure did.
And he was just tremendous.
I saw that live performance.
but
It knocked me out.
Yeah, I'm saying you just can't believe that. I love those kind of tour de force performances. I also remember I didn't see the original version, but I saw Liv Shriver doing talk radio.
Yeah.
Where he actually
Bogosian.
I saw Bogosian do it.
Well, I saw it where he
New
actually
York.
foams at the mouth and has a seizure right on on the stage, and I was just like blown away by that experience.
Yeah. I wish our students could see more of that. See, I think that's what inspires you. And the oldest trick in the book for actors or music is steal from somebody.
Right. Sure.
Steal. and then make it yours.
Well,
And that's why it was good for us growing up. We got to see these guys and ladies. We got to actually see them.
But one of the things that we have now, for example, I saw at the Roxy, they have the Royal Shakespeare Theater doing those, live broadcasts.
They do. I go to every one.
Right. I saw Benedict Cumberbatch do Hamlet.
Yeah.
And he was, anybody who saw that would get as close of an experience
Pretty
of
good.
going to Broadway and
Pretty good.
and feeling that, feeling the connection with live actors.
Well, you know what's interesting? You turned me on to a film that I just saw this past weekend, Cafe Society.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. The Woody Allen.
The Woody Allen movie. But what I was fascinated with the Woody Allen movie was the dialogue and the way the actors spoke to one another. It was like a play.
Yeah.
It's a play on
He
film.
writes dialogue. Yeah.
He writes. And
It's
he writes
really
great
incredible,
dialogue.
actually. It's almost like the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
It's like...
Yeah.
So
I can't wait to see that. I'm looking forward
It's
to
very
seeing
good.
it. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
is there a performance that really sticks out for you that you saw growing up? Beside Bye Bye, but the first one, I know that's very formative for someone. But is there another performance that you saw that you said, "God, this was just beyond surreal"?
There's a couple. One that comes to mind that I saw more than once was Pearl Bailey doing Hello, Dolly.
Hello, darling.
Wow.
A black dolly, right?
And the guy
What
was
year?
Cab Calloway.
Oh yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this was I was in college, so it was in probably the
60s.
late 60s. Yeah. That knocked me out. I was doing summer stock, and Elaine Stritch came through doing Mame.
Sure.
Now, I had seen Angela Lansbury do Mame on Broadway, but when I saw Elaine Stritch do Mame, I said, "Oh my God, this woman is like taking it to another level." Because she's got, well, I can't say Angela Lansbury does not have acting chops because she's got remarkable.
Amazing.
But
I saw her in Sweeney Todd.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Yeah. See, there's so many. I'll tell you, the one most singular day in my life was Ray Fiennes. You guys know Ray Fiennes?
Yes.
I went to the Brooklyn Academy of Music, and in the afternoon, I saw him play Coriolanus, who's this macho general, Roman general. And in the evening, I saw him play Richard II, who's sort of an effeminate fey king.
Well, he's amazing. He was did Grand
In
Hotel,
one day.
Grand Hotel Budapest,
Yeah.
where he played that kind of guy.
Yeah.
The one that really got me, I was at the Circle in the Square in the Village, and I saw Al Pacino in American Buffalo.
Well, see, I wish I could have seen that.
And I was sitting he was spitting on me, as he was.
He's a spitter. Ray Fiennes is a spitter too.
Yeah, he was just. It was completely mesmerizing. He walks onto the stage in that play in a full cursing rage. Is the way that play begins.
Is that right?
And it was just.
What's nice about Al Pacino, though, he puts all of his own money into this. This is somebody who can afford to really invest in the theater.
Yes, he does, and he puts it back.
Right. It's where he came from.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing. Well, our guest is Greg Johnson, artistic director of Montana Repertory Theater.
So tell us, we have Barefoot in the Park coming up.
Right.
How do you prepare for a play like that that's been performed many, many times, and there's a movie, with Jane Fonda and Robert Redford, and
That's
so
right.
how do you do it so it's fresh, or are you going to take a different take on it? What's the plan?
That's a great question because I thought about it. I said, "Oh, let's play with it." And then the more I played with it, the more discouraged I got because Neil Simon knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty simple story. Newlyweds have their first problem.
Right.
They have their first fights, and it's a pretty simple, straightforward thing. And I've done a lot of Neil Simon.
Biloxi Blues
and I
is
met the
another one.
dude. Yeah, I met the guy, and he's a genius.
Right.
So you got to play it straight. You got to play it straight with Mr. Simon. You don't fool around.
In period and the time it took place.
Yeah, see, that's the fun. It's 60s.
Right.
Right.
Pop culture,
Sure.
those colors.
So where do costumes come for that? Here?
Some of them will be made. Some of them will be pulled. I think Paul's easy. He's the Redford role.
Right.
He's just this button-down suit guy, so that's not a problem.
Right, no, he was.
But Corey, the Jane Fonda role, that's a little more. We can have more fun with that. And then there's the guy, the Velasco, the Rouet, who comes in and squires the mother.
Right.
The mother's very suburban. She's easy to costume.
I forget who the mother was. Was it Angela Lansbury, the mother?
Might have been.
Yeah.
Have you ever had a tough time getting a prop or a something for set design because we're in the middle of Missoula, Montana?
Yes. Costume, sometimes fabric.
Okay.
Sometimes fabric is hard to get. But actually, no, props are not that bad because old radios, and they're around. You can always find them. What you do is you start making calls, and now you can go on the internet, say we're looking for a 1940s radio or some kind of telephone, and people will give you a call.
Is it easier to find the younger actors and actresses for production or fill the older roles?
Well, Yes, it's easier to get younger people. Now, next year, here's a good example. Next year, we're doing On Golden Pond.
Oh.
And that requires 2 actors in their 60s.
Right.
And here, picture this. You're in a truck or you're in a van, you're driving all day, you do the show, you go to a hotel. It's not that attractive for someone my age to do that.
Right.
So on that level, it's harder. But what we have found, there's always adventurous souls out there who want to say, sure, I'll go on the road. And they're young at heart.
Right.
And that's because we've had many plays where we've needed people in the older spectrum, and sometimes it works out. Sometimes they get grumpy.
Sure.
But sometimes, and grumpy's not bad, because being on the road, you're allowed to get grumpy.
Right. And at least in that play, one of the characters is grumpy.
That's right.
So
that's right.
It fits very well.
Yeah.
You know what? When we come back, we're going to have our final segment with Greg Johnson, and we're going to ask him a few questions about, his top 5 actors, writers. We're going to talk to him about food too, Arnie. And you know that we have to. He's a New Yorker. Like we need to. This is the thing that he always ribs me about. It's like, where do you find a good bagel on the West Coast?
Yeah. I know.
In the middle of Montana.
Still a good question.
We'll ask you, though, when we come back on What Do You Know on Newstalk KGVO, back with Greg Johnson after this. All right, we're back with Greg Johnson.
Greg, we alluded before we took the break to, or Scott did, to what are the, the top plays that stand out, whether the rep does them or not.
Right.
What are the ones that really resonate with you, particularly from the American book of plays that are outstanding?
Well, I'm always a Tennessee Williams guy. So the 2 top for me would be Cat on a Hot Tin Roof and A Streetcar Named Desire, especially since I just spent 8 months in New Orleans. So I got it. But also Arthur Miller.
Right, we love Arthur Miller. Anyway, we were getting some background noise, but keep going.
In terms of comedy, I love Simon. I think I do think Biloxi Blues. I've done Biloxi Blues a number of times now because, of course, I've got cachet with those people, and so that's a lot of fun. And comedy, a guy named Ken Ludwig, Lend Me a Tenor. He writes great comedies. He's a great comedian. We did a Ken Ludwig play called Leading Ladies that was one of the short tours, but I just love the kind of humor. So on the humor side, it would be Simon and Ludwig, and on the drama side, Miller and Williams. But in more contemporary writers, I mentioned Ron Fitzgerald, who I love, and there's a guy named Roger Hedden who lives in this town who writes wonderful plays. Mm-hmm. And I just there's a lot of really good writers. Tom Stoppard, he's a Brit, but I love his work too.
So has there been a play that you thought transitioned particularly well to film? Usually they don't. But for example, Chicago, won all the Academy Awards.
That was a good one.
It's a good transition. Are there any others that you see like Paul Newman and Elizabeth Taylor and Cat on a Hot Tin Roof?
Pretty good there.
Yeah.
And Kazan did that amazing, groundbreaking production of Streetcar with Brando.
Sure.
That was pretty kind of special. And so
because books don't always translate as well. Everybody always says the book is better, but occasionally there may be an example where a movie conveys the emotion maybe, or at least equivalent to the way the play does.
Yeah, books are funny because they're so long.
Sure, you can't.
And you really have To Kill a Mockingbird is a perfect example. When I was researching, I read the play. I said this is really a good adaptation. But then you read the book, and there's so much that's not in the play.
Was that a play before it was a movie? No,
it was a book. Book, movie, play.
Really?
Now, here's a little tidbit that you might not know. The audience might not know that, but I know this because I'm working on To Kill a Mockingbird project right now. But Aaron Sorkin,
Yes.
Right.
He's doing an adaptation of To Kill a Mockingbird that's going to Broadway, and not this year, but next year.
He's the one that does West Wing, right?
West Wing and A Few Good Men.
Sure.
He's a major writer, and he's always loved this. So he got the rights from the family.
Well, it seems timely now to bring that back to Broadway, given what's going on in the country.
And there's 2 things here. It begs the question, television has had such an amazing resurgence. Talking about The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Right? So from then onward, TV has become the media platform of choice for a lot of writers because they have the room to really tell a story and to develop characters.
The key in this is going to be who's going to play Atticus. I mean, that's such a pivotal role.
I got a guess. You want to hear my guess?
Who?
Tom Hanks.
Is that who you thought?
Well, he did a play 2 years ago, you know, and I know a producer in New York who has dreamt
Of Tom Hanks?
doing Atticus, and don't you think that would work?
Sure.
I think that worked. The one that came to mind when I heard you say that was Bryan Cranston.
Oh yeah,
Also,
great.
who's
yeah.
got the, you have to have sort of
He's got gravity.
gravitas
Yes.
for that role in a serious way.
Yeah.
What do you like that's on TV? What do you think's well written?
Oh well, first of all, I want to echo what you just said, and it's true. All the writers I know,
Right.
The highest end medium for a writer in this country right now is long form TV.
Right.
The 13-week season.
Right.
And for good reason, it's excellent. You know, House of Cards. You know, really.
On non-traditional distribution platforms. So
Yeah.
It's not NBC, CBS.
That's right,
NBC.
and that's
It's
changing too.
Hulu, Amazon.
Yeah.
Right, so you can you
Netflix.
have complete creative liberty
Yeah.
on doing what you're going to do.
Right.
I'm watching Narco now.
Oh,
Everybody
season
says,
2?
I haven't
Yeah.
seen it yet.
I heard it's good.
It is good.
Very good. First season was incredible.
Yeah. Spoiler alert: he does. Read the newspaper.
So where do you get your fill? He's from Staten Island. Where do you get your fill of bagels and lox here in?
Well, you may not like bagels and lox.
No, I love lox and bagels. I don't know about lox. You guys, see, I was about to say Costco.
Yeah, we all know that. But it's like, but you can't get a good bagel at Costco.
Well, no, I don't know if you can get a
Maybe
bagel.
some probably
I'm not
good.
sure you can get a New York bagel in Montana. I mean, people might scream at me, but the Broadway bagel.
Yes.
I like Broadway bagel.
That's okay.
Yeah,
It's fine.
How about pizza?
It's serviceable.
Pizza, yeah, that's a
Staten Island,
good.
great pizza.
Oh, and in New York, you know, I'm a huge pizza fan because it's you just walk in, you buy the slice, you let the oil drip off it
Yes.
for about 15 minutes, and then you eat it. It's like nothing is like it
Well,
in
if
the
you
world.
want one of those, the closest I have found, and I don't think it's sponsored, is downtown on
Oh, pie in the hole, pie hole.
Pie hole.
Yeah.
Actually
They
strips.
they
and
do. It does.
Yeah, you're right
I got
about that.
It's as close as you're going to get
Yeah.
without getting on an airplane.
And you know, with all the gourmet pizzas now, I say to my wife when we're getting a pizza, I said, I need red sauce.
Yeah.
Yes.
I gotta have red sauce.
You can't have vegetables and all that. It's not with pineapple.
Yeah.
Pineapple
No, I gotta
doesn't
have the red
belong on
sauce.
pizza.
Call me crazy.
Oh, flathead cherries.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
shouldn't say
Yeah.
this.
So how often do you get back to New York?
Twice a year.
And you go to Staten Island? Do you go
business?
back?
No, I haven't been to Staten Island in a while. All the family left. Yeah, it was a matriarchy, and my grandmother died about 20 years ago. But and from the house on Spring Lake, and everybody left. And I don't think there's anybody in Staten
Did
Island
you have
left.
one of the quintessential immigrant New York experience? Where did your ancestors?
Ireland.
Ireland. They came
They're all
over-
Irish.
So they came.
Johnson doesn't sound particularly Irish because that's the one little English guy that snuck in when they were coming over on the boat. But it's the Dailies and the Malloys. Yeah,
Well,
that's,
and as you know this, the most interesting book I've ever read about that immigrant mix and all that was Gangs of New York, not from the movie, but the original sociological book.
Yeah.
You know, that was a nonfiction written about the 5 Points area and exactly how all of that unfolded and transpired. It's just completely fascinating.
yeah, it is. I love that kind of stuff. I love that stuff. Yeah, a good example is Malloy. We spell Malloy with one L. That happened in Ellis Island.
Sure.
Because I was back in Ireland a couple years ago, and I said I want to find my ancestry. There was no Malloy with an L.
Is that right?
Always two L's.
Right.
So that happened on Ellis
Most
Island.
of us are named after some clerk who was working there, recording names and decided what your name was going to be.
Is that right?
Yeah, sure.
Especially if you weren't speaking. At least the Irish could try to speak English.
Right.
Sound like.
Any of the middle, Europe
Right.
names, any of the Russian names, any of that, we're all
Eastern Europe.
anglicized.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, Greg, you've been a wonderful guest.
Well, I gotta say, it's great talking to you guys. It's just like taking me home. You've taken
We
me
tried to
home.
do that for
It was
you,
beautiful. It
for
was a
this
beautiful
weekend.
thing.
Taking us home too. This has been a fascinating conversation, Arnie.
thank you. We look forward to this season coming. When does the season start?
Well, the season starts with the university season starts with Dracula, October 19th, I think it opens.
Wow.
And then we're
Where
doing
can people get tickets?
Call the box. I don't have the number in my head.
Is there a
but
website?
GrizTix.
GrizTix.
Grizz
You can get tickets for all of our stuff at
For
GrizTix.
Dracula. That'll be fantastic.
Dracula.
Denison?
Look forward to that.
These are
No, they're in the Montana Theater.
Oh, in the Montana
in the
Theater.
PARTV building. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Greg. It's a pleasure to see you.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. You made it a pleasure. Thank you.
You'll be back soon. We'll have you back soon. Okay. Arnie,
Anytime.
I will see you.
See you next week.
Okay. See you then. Thank you for listening to What Do You Know?
I can't wait for the next show, Scott.
I'm excited too, Arnie. If you'd like to suggest a guest, send me an email at scottrichmond@townsquaremedia.com. We'll see you next week. And thanks for listening to Newstalk KGVO, AM 1290, 1015 FM, and newstalkkgvo.com.